Buddhism started a couple centuries ago by a young man named Siddhartha Gautama, and he was wondering what causes suffering. So we're going to watch this video to help you understand what the history is of Buddhism, how it came to be.
The story of the Buddha's life, like all of Buddhism, is a story about confronting suffering. He was born sometime between the 6th and 4th century BC, the son of a wealthy king in the Himalayan foothills of Nepal. It was prophesied that the young Buddha, then called Siddhartha Gautama, would either become the emperor of India or a very holy man. Since Siddhartha's father desperately wanted him to become the former, he kept the child isolated in a palace. Young Gautama had every imaginable luxury: jewels, servants, lotus ponds, even beautiful dancing women. For 29 years, Gautama lived in bliss, protected from the smallest misfortunes of the outside world. But then he left the palace for short excursions. What he saw amazed him. First he met a sick man, then an aging man, and then a dying man. He was astounded to discover that these unfortunate people represented normal, indeed inevitable parts of the human condition that would one day touch him too. Horrified and fascinated, Gautama made a fourth trip outside the palace walls and encountered a holy man who'd learned to seek spiritual life in the midst of the vastness of human suffering. Inspired by the holy man, Gautama left the palace for good. He tried to learn from other holy men. He almost starved himself to death by avoiding all physical comforts and pleasures, as they did. Perhaps unsurprisingly, it didn't bring him solace from suffering. Then he thought of a moment when he was a small boy. Sitting by the river, he'd noticed that when the grass was cut, the insects and their eggs were trampled and destroyed. As a child, he'd felt a deep compassion for the tiny insects. Reflecting on his childhood compassion, Gautama felt a profound sense of peace. He ate, meditated, and finally reached the highest state of enlightenment, nirvana. It refers to the blowing out of the flames of desire. With this, Gautama had become the Buddha, the awakened one. The Buddha awoke by recognizing that all of creation, from distraught ants to dying human beings, is unified by suffering.
Now that we understand the history of Buddhism, we're going to look at the beliefs. And one of the core beliefs is reincarnation. Reincarnation is the idea of people being reborn after dying. It is a couple cycles. They go through a couple cycles, and if they finally lose that attachment to desire and to themselves, they can attain nirvana. And this is related to their belief in karma. Karma consists of a person's acts and their consequences. Now, let's go into their four noble truths. Let's start with dukkha. Dukkha is suffering exists. Suffering is real. It is loss or sickness, pain, failure, or the idea of no pleasure. And then we're going to go into some samudaya. And this one talks about there is a cause for suffering. You have a desire to control things, or like in this GIF, it shows people who want donuts or money, or their fear of death. There's this desire to focus on one thing. Or there's that anger of death that happened, or that fear of death. And the attachment, as Buddha says, attachment is the cause of all suffering. Now let's go into Narada. And this one, it says there is an end to all suffering. It is the final disappearance of all bad experiences and their causes in such a way that they can no longer occur again. So it's changing our outlook, changes our circumstances. Now the last one is Magga. In order to end suffering, you must follow the Eightfold Path, is what Magga is. The Eightfold Path is the 8 things in the circle. It's right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. All these rights basically say that you're going to obtain perfection in a way. Now the next thing we're going to go over is the 5 precepts. And the 5 precepts talks about they're kind of like commandments in a way. And it relates to Judaism and Christianity, but it's not commandments. The 5 precepts are recommendations for how they can use their own intelligence and deciding how to act and apply these recommendations. Next thing is the three trainings or practices. And this starts with Salah. Salah is that idea of two principles, I guess, is the equality and reciprocity. It's that good conduct, morality, and virtue. The second one is samadhi. Concentration, meditation, and developing one's mind is a part to wisdom, Buddha says, which in turn leads to personal freedom and good conduct. The third one is prajna. Prajna is wisdom. It's that discernment, insight, the real heart of Buddhism. Wisdom will emerge if your mind is pure and calm. Now, how did it grow with these beliefs, we ask? When Siddhartha came out with the first sermon, Four Noble Truths, men followed him as monks. There was no woman included. However, soon leaders advised him to admit women into the religion, and soon after, women were following Buddha as well. Now the members were told to leave everything behind in order to help each of them become detached from material and social status. The first thing that Buddha wanted, because it is said that such things hinders their enlightenment. The whole detachment resembles what Buddha did at the beginning in order to start this belief system to happen. That is why he called for the members to do it as well, in order for them to reach the state he was at. Buddha created strict rules and manifested that if you broke them, you're banished. So these rules made men become monks and women become nuns. At first, it started in just a small group and soon grew to more and more. This happened with Ashoka. Ashoka was the emperor at the time and saw this new religion. He had everyone start to spread Buddhism by carving teachings in stone in his palace. He also had it spread in trade routes throughout Asia. Buddhism was carried to Central Asia and expanded into China and Korea. It continued to spread to Japan, and it continues to expand today, and that is why Buddhism is worldwide.
Since Buddhism has become a worldwide religion, it has been harder for them to keep up with the times. They have noticed that they have needed to turn to media to promote their religion and promote their beliefs. In this day and age, there is a big fear that Buddhism is becoming irrelevant. Through the use of modern-day technology and the media, Buddhist clergy have found a way to keep the Buddhism religion alive and thriving. To capture the younger generation, they use the media to promote and teach because it's more accessible to them. BuddhaNet is one of the many podcasts I came across as I was researching what media Buddhists use to promote and further their work. As you can see on the left-hand column of the homepage, their website offers Buddhist chanting, meditation instruction, Dharma talks, and Buddhist songs. Many of the websites focus more on meditation and chanting. I think this has been the biggest emphasis media has played in their religion. By making some of their practices more popular, so to say, it creates a buzz about the religion, which then leads to people wanting to join. I think by making meditation and their chanting available online, it has allowed for a revolution with meditation and yoga and everything like that, and it makes it accessible on any device through YouTube and other channels, so then it leads to people coming to the fold of Buddhism. Their meditation practices have even been used in very modern and popular films. For example, in this clip I will show you, it's from The Incredible Hulk in 2008, and it's showing Bruce meditating. Instead of meditating to reach a higher spiritual state, he specifically meditates for the purpose of calming himself and settling his mind. I think this is a good example of how the media has taken the Buddhist religion and kind of applied it in their own way. I think that there are benefits of having this religion played through media and involved in characters' backstories in media, but I also think that there are some disadvantages. However, I think ultimately this has brought the Buddhist culture and religion more widespread. Buddhists are slowly transitioning into becoming more accustomed with using media to promote their work. We will now look further into a monk who has used technology to his advantage.
This is Ven Nadanka, who goes by Yunan, the tech monk. It is extremely unusual for a lifelong Buddhist monk to use Facebook, carry a cell phone, or board a luxury cruise liner traveling the world. But for Burmese monk Yunan, he is taking part in the Western experience firsthand. This helps bridge the gap between his students in a country that has long been isolated from the rest of the world. In 2011, when Yunan was just appointed to an administrative position at the Sayan Yadanda Monastery in Mandalay, where he lives, a donor gifted him a cell phone in order to keep contact with the outsiders visiting the monastery. Since then, he has created a Facebook and an email address to help spread info, teaching his students about the power of technology. As a rule for Buddhist monks, it is highly inappropriate to keep a cell phone and to keep a computer. These things are for high-class individuals. Yunan explains, but times are changing nowadays. If we couldn't follow the times, we will be behind the times, and we don't want to stay behind. Also, Yunan goes on to explain, don't waste your precious time just using Facebook, because this high technology is not for entertainment. Union tells his students that the aim of high technology is to give higher knowledge and higher education. If you are just enjoying it to listen to music or to chit chat, you are enslaving yourself to technology. To get a deeper insight on how the modern Buddhist interacts with technology, I thought who better to ask than my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law is a Taiwan native and was raised in a Buddhist household where she was taught to follow the ways of the Buddhist religion. Buddhism is one of the major religions of Taiwan and of the Taiwanese people. Taiwanese people predominantly practice Mahayana Buddhism with Confucius principles and Taoist traditions. In 2005, the census recorded 8 million Buddhists out of a total population of 23 million. Without further ado, here is an interview I had with my sister-in-law, Wanxia Gorde. Hello, this is my sister-in-law, Wanxia Gorde, and her husband, J. Paul Gorde. Thank you so much for joining us today. I just wanted to really just jump in the topic and start asking her some questions about her childhood and her upbringing within the Buddhism religion. So, Wanxia, growing up in a Buddhist household, were you taught to avoid technology?
你小的时候，你的父母有没有叫你不要碰技术？
不会，我父母不会叫我不要碰技术。
She says no, not really. Her parents really never told her to truly avoid technology.
And why do you think that was their reason?
这个为什么你父母没有叫你不要碰？
因为这个时代不一样，要跟着时代进步。现在技术都很发达，每个人都必须要学会技术方面的，因为可以帮助你以后的未来工作方面，所以我父母不会反对我。
She said her parents really never truly told her to avoid technology, and the reason for that was to continue learning and progressing. She basically said that technology has many benefits, and one of the primary benefits is finding good work. And through technology, we can learn and gain education, all for the benefit of our future.
And do you think there was any restrictions from technology or media or certain movies
that the Buddhist religion put on you and your family?
学佛教的时候，有没有特别要限制的片，或是电视方面的事情？有没有叫你不要看这些事情？
没有佛教不会，我们以前佛教没有这个限制，电视上都有在播佛教，从小看到长大。
She says really the Buddhist teachings really didn't tell her to avoid anything. But she did go out and mention that on television there's a lot of Buddhist teachings that are readily available, but none of them really state to avoid any types of technology.
Do you think that the Buddhist religion encourages technology and the use of technology, and is there a certain purpose of that use within the Buddhist culture?
佛教有没有鼓励佛教徒学技术？有没有这种文化？
他们没有教，可是这是每个人从小就是因为在环境的关系，每个人都会碰到。佛教也不会教你不要学，因为这是帮助你以后的未来要跟着时代变，现在时代跟以前的时代是不一样。现在每个世界都是不管哪一个国家哪一个信仰都是要碰到这种科技方面的东西，所以你要跟着时代改变。
She said in this generation, everyone needs to be accustomed to technology and know how to use it. In that way, we can keep up with the times.
Did you feel that when TV portrayed Buddhism and kind of your culture within the media, did you feel like it was disrespectful in any way?
当电视或是电影有播到佛教徒的文化或是宗教信仰，你有没有觉得这是批评你的宗教信仰，或是对你来说有不好的影响？
你是说他有在批评？
对，可以这么说，这个是一个其中一个。
那我会觉得不舒服，因为我觉得不要批评任何一个宗教信仰，只要这个信仰它是教你好的，我们要尊重他们别人的信仰，我们要尊重他，只要是教你好的信仰，都是不要批评的。
She said as long as the movie or the television program was portraying Buddhism in a positive light and not criticizing the religion and respecting the religion, then in that case she's fine with it. She doesn't have any complaints or negative opinions about that.
Okay. And then also, just to close off here, is why did you decide to convert from Buddhism to Mormonism?
为什么你从佛教徒变成基督徒？
我从以前我还没跟我老公认识的时候，我就是佛教徒，但我跟我的父母，我们整个家族整个都是佛教徒。然后我是跟我老公认识之后，他让我认识这个基督徒摩门教的门徒。那我自己本身也有见证，所以我觉得我有见证，所以我就想这个加入这个信仰。但是我不会批评我以前的佛教徒，因为我也是从以前就是佛教徒出身的。那虽然我现在有这个信仰，我还是会很尊重我以前的信仰，因为不要做任何的批评。我记得教会的教导也有说，不要批评别人信仰，因为别人信什么是他自己的选择，不要做批评。而我自己有见证，我觉得我现在生活很快乐，然后生活有很多的改变，家庭、小孩方面、老公都很美满。 就接下来的见证。
So before she met me, she was a devout Buddhist. Her parents were Buddhists. Her whole family is Buddhist. But having come to the United States and learning more about the church, she's gained a personal testimony of the church. And with this new testimony and her new belief, she still maintains the values of Buddhism. And she would not criticize Buddhism, although she knows that the Christian church, the Mormon church, is the true church. And although this church is true and Buddhism is not her primary belief, she still believes that those core values are positive, and she'll never go back and criticize those values. And through learning and through learning about the church, she's gained a personal testimony, and she's seen that testimony in her life blessed through her family and the blessings that her family has received, our family has received, and that's her main testimony.
Awesome. That's really cool. And with seeing the Buddhist side and also seeing the Mormon side, do you see that like beliefs cross over? And then also specifically with technology, do you feel like the teachings are somewhat the same with technology use?
他说你可以比较一下佛教徒跟摩门教徒使用的技术有什么类似的，还是有没有差别？他们都是用一样的技术吗？是他们用不同的技术？教导方面。
基本上都是用一样的，就是我们教都是用电视教友大会用电视来让，因为我们教也是有很多世界各地的人都在不同的地方，他也没办法为了来美国参加教友大会，所以他们就用透过看电视，可以让那些信徒很多信仰的人可以在电视上跟先知分享，但是佛教徒也是一样，很多信徒他们也没有办法去那个大堂跟很多跟那个比较高的那个和尚见面讲话，他们也是可以看到电视，然后听那个佛教的那最高层的人在讲话，然后听他们的佛教的宣言啊，也都是跟我们教的都是一样，都是有电视啊、广播或什么的，那个书也是可以看到，也是都是一样的技术。
So basically, there's really not a lot of difference between her view of technology from the Mormon side and the Buddhism side. For example, conference. Conference utilizes a broad television scope to reach out to a numerous large group of people because, we cannot go to the conference center, right? Buddhism uses television the same way. Every week or every month there's a Buddhist message that's broadcasted across all of Taiwan and all of different places because we all cannot meet up in the monastery, right? So this use of technology in broadcasting and television, magazine and books is pretty much the same.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for allowing me to interview you today. You guys have been fantastic, and I really opened up my eyes to kind of understand your side and your thoughts behind technology and also Mormonism, and it's been great. So I really appreciate your time, and I'd like to have a warm thank you to having them here with us today. So take care, guys. We'll see ya.
In Buddhist culture, they say see you later and not goodbye, as you never know when you'll see someone again. We hope you enjoyed our presentation, and we'll see you later.